Thank you for joining us at PCI Webinars for today's webinar, Jack of All Trades, Public Service Librarians in Small Library Systems. Our presenter today is Dana Bomba. Dana is a Public Services Librarian and Branch Manager for the Campbell County Public Library System in Central Virginia. Her primary focuses are daily branch operations, collection development, adult programming, and technology instruction. This is her first professional position in a library, and she's grateful for the collaborative experiences she's had so far. Welcome, Dana.
Hello, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Here is my contact information if you have any questions after the show. I'm currently away on maternity leave, but I am checking my email, so you might not get a response right away, but I will do my best. And please email me any questions you have. I love interacting with everyone after doing a presentation. All right, so a little bit about where I work. I'm in Campbell County, which is in Southwest Virginia. Technically, it's called Central Virginia, but if you look at a map, it really is Southwest. If you look at the stars on the map, these are where all of our libraries are located. The one in the top left in the Timberlake region, that's the one that I currently work in. You can see that they're pretty stretched out, so it's really important for our public services librarians to work together. Can everyone in the comments, I know I'm having you put in where you're from. Can you tell me also what your position is? Thank you. And we'll have some questions later on to talk a little bit more about what interests you in the public services librarian and what brought you here for this presentation today. Thank you, Tanji. All right, let's see. Oh, so we have some Ohio and Maryland. Wonderful. Oh no, Teresa. Okay. Let's get started. It looks like just about everyone has responded. Okay, so here's our dream team. I'm in the middle, and Jordan Wellborn on the left. She's our public services librarian in our main library, our Rustburg branch. She currently was just promoted to interim director, so we're super proud of her. And Emily is holding down the fort as our sole PSL while I'm out on leave. She's doing an amazing job. So between the three of us, we are the librarians for 4 libraries. So we'll talk a little bit about this here. So Jordan has been with us for 7 years. Her position, or I'm going to speak as if she's still the public services librarian because she just became interim director after I created this presentation. So her position in Rustburg is very unique. She manages the circulation team while she's there and many of the building needs, but also has the director on the premises, which means that many of the problems you run into in branches where the branch manager has to handle those things, the director can take those on for her. Because she's in the main library, she gets a lot of the really cool stuff. She gets the interesting reference questions, the really challenging ones, the genealogy, because that's the library people know to go to when they're from out of town or they just don't know that they have a library closer to their home. They'll go to the main branch. She definitely spreads that wealth around, and she she gives us some of that work to do with her, so we can also gain that experience, Emily and I, and help her out. Rustburg is one of the busier libraries, so she also gets to interact a lot with the other county departments. Next, I've been with CCPL for about 4 years. I work out of the Timbrook Library, which is the busiest branch. I manage the circulation team in the building and also collaborate on some teams with the public services librarians. Now, Emily has been with us, she'll be with us about a year in February. She works out of our Stanton River Memorial Library, and she also spends 1 day a week at the Patrick Henry Memorial Library, which is our very small library. So if we take a look here, I'm going to go back to our map. So the bottom left is Alta Vista, and the bottom right is the Patrick Henry library. So Alta Vista has the Stanton River Memorial Library, and Brook Neal has the Patrick Henry Memorial Library. And you can see that those have quite a bit of distance between them, so she is a rock star for going down there once a week. It's definitely a trek. And then you can also see where it says Campbell County, excuse me, that is the Rustburg branch. It's central to the county, and that's where most of our patrons will go before finding out they have libraries all over the county. So let me go back here to my first question. There we go. Okay, so how many attendees today are public services librarians or directors considering this model for their library system? Let me go back here and see what everyone had commented. I did see a branch manager. I see a reference supervisor and a public services librarian. Hi, Walter from Florida. So now, Walter, you said that you are a public services librarian. Are there any other librarians here today who are considering this model for their library or are part of a system where they're considering this model? I'll give you a moment to answer there. So if anyone wants more information about this, please definitely email me. I will put my email up at the end as well if you missed it from the beginning. Okay. So we are going to, let me see here. Devine looks like she's, Devine, so the model, I mean the public services librarians as the branch managers and as the librarian, the head librarian for a branch. We'll get into that a little bit, but the position encompasses a lot of things. When we talk about the pros and cons of this, we'll touch on that a little bit more, but one of the main reasons is because budgets are shrinking. Budgets have been shrinking for years, and as you have to compensate in different places, you need to add tasks to different librarians. So a reference librarian might be doing, collection development and genealogy and branch management. So they're no longer a reference librarian, and that's where public services kind of comes into play. Tara, yes. So your position, are you called a branch manager in your technical title, or are you called a librarian? We'll let her answer, give her a minute there. Okay. So your position's probably very similar to a public services librarian. So as we go through some of the tasks and things, let me know what you think. So one of the things that I get a lot when I say that I'm a public services librarian is, what do I do all day? Because I don't say that I'm a branch manager even though I am. That's not the first thing I go to. And when you say that, people kind of understand a little more about what you would do. I think everyone gets this question when they tell people they're a librarian. Okay. Looks like we have a few people sending us some messages. Yes, Walter, those are also things that we do for the public services position as well. All right. So every day is different, but the first thing we're going to talk about are our reference and technology assistants, because that seems to be the one thing or the two things that come up the most. Yes, Teresa, our model is very similar to yours. I'll talk about our circulation managers called the Library Associate. So we'll talk a little bit about that shortly. All right, so our reference questions and our technology assistants. Like I said, that's some of the bulk of my day. Our libraries, they don't operate with a reference desk, but with a single point of service. So the circulation staff will come and get me from my office if someone needs additional assistance outside of what they can do. My staff is amazing. They're all they're very educated. They like to really see what they can do for people before coming to get me, which is wonderful. I know not every library has that advantage, but I think a few of them are aspiring to be librarians, and they're really awesome with their skills. But if it's too busy and they need to focus on circulation, they will come get me as well. And for technology assistants, it's the same thing. Our computer desks are within feet of the circulation desk. We don't have a very big library in my library, but the computers are very close. So they'll get a lot of those questions from people using the public computers. I've kind of had to set a time frame of, okay, if it takes more than 5 or 10 minutes for you to help these people, please come and get me. And then that usually can translate into a one-on-one appointment too. So the technology assistance also becomes one-on-one appointments. I don't teach a lot of classes. I don't know if any of you teach a lot of technology classes and how your attendance is. Mine is terrible. Technology classes just don't seem to interest people on a classroom setting type of topic. But one-on-ones are very vibrant and they really focus on the person's need. I think people get more out of those one-on-ones, at least in my community. So Walter, I hope you're successful with your classes because it's like pulling teeth to get me to fill a class. It's hard. All right, moving on to collection development. Yes, Walter, and I think that's because people really like that one-on-one attention so they can ask questions and they can make sure they're understanding what you're doing and not just trying to cram so much information into, say, 1 hour. So the next thing that public services librarians do in our county, the 3 of us, unfortunately, we don't have a budget for any special software to keep track of our circulation of different genres and topics and order books accordingly. We do that with spreadsheets, the good old-fashioned way. Luckily, we're all very technical, and this is something that, even though we don't exactly enjoy the bulk of the ordering, it's something that we're all very good at. So we order all of the adult materials with the exception of Overdrive. And we split up the categories. So, for example, I do mystery, action, and thriller, which encompasses hundreds of authors, which is why I'm only really doing like one genre. Jordan does romance and sci-fi. I know Emily does historical fiction, Christian fiction. And we do it that way so that even though we order for each other's branches, we keep very specific spreadsheets of how many copies we order. We keep track of some of the circulations of new authors to make sure that we're spending our money wisely. And we do this because, so we do it split up this way in genres because it's easier to learn about your genre, get really good at it, and then focus on those instead of jumping around from genre to genre and not really honing in that skill. And the benefit of doing that would be that you're ordering just for your branch, but then you're not learning about the rest of the county as well. So we meet regularly to order. So the public services librarian, even though they're the branch manager, they need to spend a lot of time in their branch. We do meet regularly. It's usually once a week or once every other week for an 8-hour day. And we order this way so that we can focus. We do this, because it's, again, not our favorite thing to do. So if we're focusing together and we can rally together, we get a lot done. This minimizes errors and it allows for us to have that very fine-tuned process. We do this also to check our orders so that there are no mistakes. We use this time to discuss anything going on in our library, any management things. We have a little public services, or PSL we call ourselves, so the PSL meeting where we discuss anything we need to discuss. Branch specific things. Let me see, Desiree, I'm just reading your comment here real quick. Yes, I agree, Desiree. All right, so we are going to move on here to the next thing that we do is adult and teen programming. So before I move on from collection development, is there anyone here who is in charge of collection development, or do you have specific librarians who do those things? I don't want to jump around too much here. I know we're not a very large system. We serve about 50,000 people, and our budget is, I think, just over $1 million. So we have to be very careful with where we spend our money, so we don't have those programs to buy the books for us. Okay, Tim. Okay, so it looks like a few of you have a little bit of the ordering responsibilities. Okay, so everyone does it a little bit differently. Let me see here. Okay, so let's go back a little bit here. Okay, so it looks like Tim said that they help the faculty buy their books. Walter helps with the children's and the young adult collections. Teresa does the children's DVDs, video games, and lunch pads. It looks like everyone kind of does a little bit of the ordering for their libraries, which is so helpful when we spread the wealth, which is exactly what Desiree said. Each of the librarians order a category of materials, or sometimes a few, which is very helpful. You can, like I said, get really good at a couple of topics and not have to learn about every single one. It means that you get a more quality collection. So Tangi, you select all of the physical material for your branch. Okay. So we were originally going to try that model, and we realized with so many other responsibilities that we had, that if we focused on specific genres for each one of us, that it would be more productive, and we'd have a better quality that we were bringing in. But if that's working for you, I think that's wonderful. Naveen, I think we used to have a centralized ordering in Rustburg, and the person doing all the cataloging for the adults, they were also doing all the ordering, and she just couldn't keep up. It was so much work. We unfortunately only had one person in that department. So that's why the PSLs took on that task. We've been doing that for about 2.5 years now. So Daveen said that they have a centralized ordering, and then at the branch level, they facilitate the weeding and reorders. And reorders, yes, that's something that the circulation staff help us with. And Tara specifically orders the children's materials and paperbacks. All right, we are going to move on now to our programming. I know Walter mentioned that he does some programming. So these are some examples of some of the adult programs we've done. You'll notice since we discovered Canva, a whole nother, topic we can discuss at a webinar, which I think my good PSL friend Emily Correa has presented on. You can see that our flyers have gotten better and better. All right. We also, if you look at the Kathleen Grissom one, that one was done by a student. We have volunteers. We have Liberty University near us, and they have volunteer hours. So they usually send some students to us, and one of them was a graphic design student. She introduced us to Canva, and Emily taught us how to use it. And between the two of them, our marketing materials have gotten so much better. I've learned quite a bit from them. So let's talk about adult and teen programming. Let's talk about teen programming first, because it's the shorter part of this slide, simply because it is so hard for us to get teens to come in. I don't know if that's a challenge for all of you, but we don't have a lot of designated teen space. We're very landlocked. Free food, yes. I actually went out. I had some teens, and I think they're maybe in their early 20s. They were hanging around our dumpster for some reason, and I saw them at the window, so I went out and I asked them, I'm like, listen, what do I need to do to bring you into the library? I have no problem that you're hanging out outside, but what do I need to do to bring you in? And yes, they said pizza. So yes, free food. But with that, we try to give them some kind of, quality programming and not just say we'll feed them. So what we do with team programming is it's a shared effort with our children's manager who works with the school-age children. So the children's managers, we have two of them. One works from birth to 5 years old. She does the baby garden program and the tut time and preschool story time and all of that. And then the other children's manager does all the school-age children. So we work together with her. We have unfortunately not been very successful. Like I said, I'm hoping maybe in 2018, specifically in Alta Vista at the Stanton River Memorial Library, we can bring those teens in. Emily's doing a good job of that. She's within walking distance of the high school, and I know in years past that was a challenge because anytime you have teens coming in, you need to remind them of the rules and how to use the library. But at the same time, we don't want to chase them away. And I think that may have been what happened years ago. So we're bringing them back. So the adult programming, which I spend probably about 20 to 25% of my job is adult programming. It has lessened over the last couple of years because less and less people were coming in, and we had some big projects we were focusing on instead. This year in our budget, we're looking at doing 1 or 2 very large programs for each branch, and then having our ongoing things. So some of the ongoing things that we do, of course, are book clubs, crafting groups. There's a diabetic support group. I can't take credit for that, even though it's at my branch and it's the most successful program. It's been going on for years and years. Those are always the ones that continue and the ones we can advertise to make sure, even when we're having some slow periods in the library for one-off programs, we always have those to promote. So some of the one-off programs, if you take a look at your slide here, we had the author talk with Kathleen Grissom. That was by pure luck. It's very hard to get authors to come when we don't have a budget to pay them. So she was actually the friend of one of our book club members, and she's been wonderful and talked about her last 2 books with us, Glory Over Everything and The Kitchen House. And then let's see, what else do we have down here? Doesn't look like I have any other one-off ones here, but one of the one-offs I'm going to do again of Banned Books Week. We have a silent art auction where participants create art that is inspired by a banned book. We did that a couple years ago when we were raising money for our new library, and it was very successful. Unfortunately, that landed the week that I was going to have my baby, so I couldn't do it. But next year I'm doing it. I can't wait. It was a lot of fun. Oh yes, Walter, sometimes you'll have an author who either, you're in their home library or they have a connection to a specific library, so they always come and they do that. Walter said that they are fortunate to have Tim Dorsey do a book signing with them whenever he has a new book out. I think we've developed that relationship with Kathleen Grissom because I promote her extensively in the community, and she's just so wonderful to work with. She was one of the people who helped me with my public speaking. She has a few very special things to say to me right before our last presentation together. Let me see here. So to continue and move away from the one-off programs, a lot of these are in conjunction, and they're more family programs as well, like the Halloween party and Friendsgiving and Santa. Those are all things we work with our program team. I've presented on the program team in the past where we work together, the public services librarians and the children's programming managers and the director and a few other people. We put on these bigger programs for families. And those are usually generally pretty successful. For adult programs, I see success if I can have 10 to 20 people, honestly. Anything more than that, and I'm tickled pink. The larger family programs, we usually have anywhere between 50 in our smallest branch to 200 in our larger ones. Oh yes, Walter, when I think I have a slide for genealogy, we'll talk about that a little bit too. We have a Roots Club series where we are pulling in some people from local museums to talk a little bit about genealogy. All right, and then some of the other things we have here are monthly things like grown-up game night and adult bingo. Our job interview simulation we thought was an awesome idea, and then no one ended up signing up, so I put it in here because it's still a great idea, just maybe it was the wrong time of year. And then our resume, creating resumes with career transition, that's something we offer all the time. Teresa, the Teen Advisory Council, yes. I have been reading about that while I've been away, and I think that's such a wonderful idea, and I would love to get something like that started. The first thing we need to do for my branch is to get a bus stop from the school to our library, but that is something that I would really love to do. Teresa said that they feed them pizza and they help them plan the teen events, which is a great, great idea. Yes, and you can get them to volunteer to do things. Teresa said that their last teen event, the teens cut graham crackers for an upcoming gingerbread house program. That's awesome. All right, I am going to move to the next slide because we have, I think we have about, 20 slides left. Well, a little less than 20 slides left to go, and I don't want to miss anything. The last thing I'll mention with this is Emily is a fresh face for our library in the last year, and she brings a lot of really awesome ideas. And one of the latest ones was the program in a box. So we have a lot of different craft things that teens would enjoy doing, and we have these programs in little boxes, and they travel around from branch to branch. They spend about a month at each branch. Those boxes contain an example of the craft, directions, all the supplies, and it's a very good passive way of bringing a program to the library. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is outreach. So Jordan and I went to the Virginia Library Association conference 2 years ago, and we saw that the Sussex County Library had a pop-up library. And it was amazing, and it was so interactive, and we were jealous. Not really, but you know, we wanted one for our own. And we decided that we could do it for much less money. We had no budget for this. Jordan was instrumental in putting this together. You can see some of the supplies in all these pictures. We put together the pop-up library in a few months. We came way under our lack of budget and we started traveling around. So let me pull up my stats here. We have done 28 pop-ups throughout our county from July 2016 to September 2017. I can't speak to anything after September since I haven't been in the library for a while. But we went out to all different types of events. This was something we were doing before. But before, I would take a canvas bag and I'd walk around my library and say, okay, I need this sign and I need these bookmarks, and I would just collect things I needed and go and do my outreach and then bring everything back and put it back. And that's very time consuming. So we created the pop-up library instead. We've reached about 1,500 people this way. We've given out 1,500 library cards this way. We've probably talked to more people, but we keep our stats based on the number of cards we hand out. We recently were able to get a, oh goodness, I'm forgetting the word, a Wi-Fi hotspot so that we could do the cards right there on site, and we could explain to people, you know, what the library has to offer while also bringing them little bits of the library under our wonderful tent. So if we look around this slide, you can see the many places we've been to. Pre-K registration is always a really good one. We hand out a lot of cards at that one. Since children need to be about 5 years old, I believe, and need to be able to sign their name, they start out with pre-K registration with their library card. And we do Healthy Kids Day with the Y. Career Day was at the Technical Center. And then some of these are around the schools. The Heritage Festival every year is kind of like our county fair. So we have lots of fun. Now this is something everyone gets involved in. If you like to volunteer your time, sometimes some of our staff will volunteer to come if it's on a weekend, or this year we are lucky enough to have a budget to pay them for their involvement in this. The program team does this for the most part. You can see in the bottom middle picture for pre-K registration. You have Jen on the left. She's a collection development librarian. You have Katie in the Heritage Festival picture. She's the programming manager, children's programming manager. We all collaborate and do this together. So some of the other ways that we do outreach is we do presentations. We'll go around the county to different places. I've done one at the American Legion. That was wonderful because I was reaching out to a different group. This was mostly retired men, service members, and when I was done presenting, several raised their hand with questions like, well, I don't live in this county, can I get a library card? Which the answer is yes. And one, I had a wonderful conversation of how libraries have changed and they're not this super quiet place that they were when he was a child. So it was wonderful to reach out to many people who haven't been in a library for a long time. And then, oh, the last thing I wanted to mention in this slide is a presentation called Putting Library Services to Work at Work. This is for research, marketing, and staff development. This was a presentation that Emily did for the Chamber of Commerce of Alta Vista. And she really explained to them what the library can do for the businesses in our county. We're going to be expanding on this the first quarter of next year, doing open houses for small businesses to come into the library where we can explain to them more fully what they can do with all of our services, what we can do for them. This is where I might get to teach some more of those classes, Walter, because I might have some full classes this way if an employer wants to send some of their employees in to learn how to do different things like, any of the Microsoft products and many other things. And staff development as well. We are so lucky our former director was very involved in our professional development to where we're all very comfortable with passing that knowledge on. All right. Next thing we're going to talk about is marketing. Now, I seem to remember, Walter, you saying that you did the local PR and marketing for your library. I'm not a professional at this. I've kind of had to learn as I go how to do most of these things. So if you have any advice, throw it my way. But we create all of our marketing materials for all of our events, for the library, for youth services, for our website, all of that. The public services librarians create. We recently hired a part-time clerk for one of our libraries that is going to be helping us with this because she has a background in PR. So hopefully, just like Emily made our materials look so much nicer by teaching us how to use Canva, we're hoping Tina can teach us how to be more effective in this way. Part of this marketing as well is our community service announcements and our press releases we send to the public information officer for the county. They manage sending all of that out to the local media in one batch. In the smaller towns that have small newspapers, the librarians will reach out to them separately just to have that relationship, and many times that's how library events can end up in the paper that much quicker. My branch has to compete a little more with Lynchburg because Lynchburg is a bigger city. The newspaper that's closest to my branch serves the whole area, Central Virginia, but they post a lot more things for the city library because they have a very active presence. So sometimes it can be difficult to get some of our things in the paper. There was one year when I first started, we managed to be in the paper in one way or another every single week. And I'd love to get back to that. That's really important to us. So some of the other things that we're responsible for, this sounds like a laundry list, and it really is. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of a public services librarian. This laundry list can be a pro and it can be a con. We do all of our event promotion through daily postings through Hootsuite on Facebook and Twitter. I think we're playing with an Instagram account so far. I'm not sure if it connects with Hootsuite. That was the last I heard. They were trying to figure that out. We send monthly e-blasts to our patrons that subscribe to that service, so we'll remind them of things that are coming up. We also manage our website calendar. We add our events. We put some of our big events coming up we put on our front river, and then we really try to make sure we stay on top of that. We do it about quarterly, and some of these things, such as the community service announcement and the e-blast, we share that workload. We'll rotate between the three of us. We'll rotate, so every 3 months you're doing it instead of every month. And the community service announcement, the only thing that we really do with that when we rotate is we proof it to make sure everyone who put their information on there has done it correctly and in the form that the public information officer needs to send to the media. If I'm moving too fast through any of this, please comment and slow me down. I tend to talk very fast. I know we only have so much time, and we have about 20 minutes left, so we have a couple more things to talk about, and then we're going to move into some time management. So unfortunately, we do have to move pretty quickly. Maybe I could have created 2 presentations out of this. Okay, so real quick, we've talked a little bit about the branches. And we've talked a little bit about their makeup, but let's talk a little bit about a little more about that. So the Public Services Librarian is the branch manager. I know a few of you had mentioned that you're also branch managers. And this is one of the tasks that sometimes takes up the most time. It especially does so in the libraries that do not have a library associate. The library associate has taken on some of the more tedious tasks for me. They're kind of a pseudo supervisory position where they're in charge of the circulation. I'll say department, but we have very small libraries, so the department is 3 or 4 people, and then the library associate, and then the librarian. So it's not a lot of staff at our branches. The library associate is responsible for scheduling. They handle call-outs and calling subs. They handle any time-off requests outside of needing approval in the request through our time cards, which still comes to me. They handle they're the front line at the desk when there's a challenge, when there's any kind of problems with patrons, any discrepancies. They will handle it first, and if it's something that needs to be elevated, then they will come get me. The person who is currently in this position was recently promoted in my library, which is awesome. I've gotten to promote so many people as a branch manager, and it's the best feeling ever. So let's talk a little bit about the makeup of all of our branches. So we talked about the main library. They're the largest library, and they have some of the highest circulation. Timbrook, which is my library, is not far behind. Very busy, not very big, but we have a new building. We spent decades raising money for a new building, and it's beautiful. And so we're the 2 largest libraries, and we have some of the highest circulation, which means we have the most staff. And then the other 2 libraries are on the smaller side, and they have less staff because of that. One is a part-time library in Brookneal, the Patrick Henry Memorial Library. The other, the Stanton River Memorial Library in Alta Vista, is a little bit larger. They're starting to get busier now that they have a new librarian who is doing more programming. They've picked up a little bit. She's doing a lot of outreach, so we've had to add some staff to her library. The part-time library is closed Mondays and Fridays and Sundays, and they have a branch manager, and they have 2 part-time clerks, I believe. Now, I talked about how one of our librarians serves 2 libraries, and that's because we have a part-time library. So instead of having a part-time librarian there, a quarter-time librarian is what I think our strategic plan shows. The librarian for the Alta Vista branch goes down to the Brookneal branch once a week. They have a branch manager who's not a librarian there. She's been there for 30 years. She's amazing. And she backs up the librarian, and the librarian backs up her. It works out really, really well. So between the 3 of us, we cover 4 libraries, and we jump in, whenever someone needs help, you jump in and you go. I've worked at all of these libraries, filling in at circulation, answering reference questions, either over the phone or going to a library to help someone. We're not a huge county. We're not a huge library system, so we really work together and we help each other. I think that's one of the biggest things, the most important things about the public services librarian position is you do so many things that you're able to really help everyone. All right, we're going to have some questions here, and then we're going to have to fly through our time management section. Okay. So, what do you think of some of the positive aspects of working as a public services librarian? I'm going to give everyone about a minute or 2 to kind of think about this, and if you want to type some of your answers into the discussion, I can read them off. Like I said, we're running a little low on time, so we'll kind of move along a little quickly. I apologize for that. I just have so much good information to give you about this position. Some of the positive aspects. Yes, Teresa. We can basically go to any library and do just about anything except cataloging. None of us have taken on cataloging. We have an awesome cataloger, though. Teresa said cross-training. Yes, Randall, that's the main thing that we focus on. We spend most of our time with reference and technology questions. Randall said helping patrons find the information they're seeking. Excuse me. Yes, Terry, and that is one of the things we're going to talk about. Every day is unique. And that can fall under the good side and the not so good side. All right, now our next question is, what do you think are some of the challenges in working as a public services librarian? Terry touched on that with her positive note as well. Every day is unique. So I'll kind of comment there that, yeah, you never know what you're going to get sometimes. Every day is different. So I'll give you about a minute to think about some of the challenges of all the things we've just talked about. We do collection development. Actually, I failed to mention the genealogy. We do a little bit of that as well. So I'm sorry, Walter. I said that I was going to talk about genealogy in our Roots Club, and I realized it's not in here. So real quick, Roots Club is a monthly group that goes around from library to library, and they have different speakers where we do pull in people from our community, from the museums, historical societies, and such. Yes, Terry, you need to wear many, many hats. With a new building for Timbrook, I've had to also wear a construction hat, which was awesome and fun, and I got to help move every book from our storefront to our new building with the help of Public Works. But yes, many hats. You never know what's going to happen. I'm hoping that my library associate will get accepted to present this year at the paraprofessional conference that they have here. And one of the things she talked about, speaking of wearing many hats, is the number of animals we have to deal with. We had a horse recently in our parking lot. Dogs all the time. We always have to tell people they can't bring their dogs in unless they're service members. We had a snake recently too. So yes, many hats. Snake wrangler is not one of them I'm willing to really accept though. All right. Moving on, we'll look at our list here. So these are the things that I reached out to Jordan and Emily and asked them what they find to be the pros and the cons. And we don't really see them as cons, really. We see them as challenges, and challenges you can overcome. But yes, wide variety of duties, and every day is different. That can be good, and that can be bad. The lists just go on and on with the number of things that we do on a daily basis that you never know. But that also is what makes it fun, and it keeps you energized. I know a lot of librarians who wait for the conference every year, their state conference, to re-energize themselves with new ideas and to talk to their colleagues. And I do that too. That's re-energizing for me. But coming in every day and not knowing what to expect can be re-energizing for the right person. On the positive side, it's never boring. It's never a monotonous type of position. You get a very active management experience, which I'm very grateful for. This is my first management experience. My director has spent a lot of time developing those skills with me that I really appreciate. We get a lot of leadership support, and we support each other, which is really wonderful. And then our partnership opportunities with each other, with different departments in the county and different places all over the businesses and places we reach out to, we're able to make some really awesome partnerships. Now, some of the challenges, being the only one in your branch. I believe, I'm drawing a blank now if it was Teresa or Tara who mentioned that they are the only librarian in their branch. That's the case for us as well. With limited budgets and small populations, we have one librarian at each library, and that can be tough. On the same level, when you're the only manager, that can be tough also. You don't have someone you can commiserate with if you need to in person. I have made phone calls here and there to my PSLs to just get a little bit of encouragement throughout the day just after a hard day. So that can be one of the things that can be tough. Management duties that take precedent over anything else, when you're the supervisor and you're the leader, you need to drop what you're doing. It doesn't matter what it is to handle anything that comes your way. I mean, most of us are in public libraries, so you never know what's going to come in. You want to be there for your staff as much as possible. So really about, let me see here, I think I wrote down a statistic for this, and I'm sure it's something that everyone already knows, but I believe it said 80% of the work, or 80% of the work is dealing with people, and 20% is doing the tasks that you need to do. And that couldn't be more true depending on what type of library you're in as well. Let's see. Okay, so one of the things the next thing we're gonna spend a few minutes talking about is time management. Because as a public services librarian with so many things that you're responsible for, you really need to be proactive in your own time management. No one's going to tell you at 2 o'clock that you only have a couple of hours left and you really had a goal of completing something that day. Being the only one in your library means there's no babysitting. You know, this is something that's very important. And one of the librarians said you're not in it for the pay. That's something that I think we can all agree on in library land. It's something we love to do, and one of the best things about this position is you get to learn a lot of different things that later on you can decide if you want to focus on one of them or if you really like this this variety. Let me make sure that I touched on everything I wanted to touch on with you. All right, I believe I touched on everything here for you. One of the things that I had made a note of is if you can't prioritize your work, you won't enjoy this position and you potentially might not be successful. So with that said, let's move on to time management. This is the secret to success as a PSL. So you will see the document that you can download on the bottom left with the resources that I mentioned. This position, since it's the position I'm in, I didn't have a lot of avenues to go with as far as readings and things about the public services position. Most of the resources are mainly about the time management. I follow a couple of blogs and authors, and there's some productivity points that will be posted on our county portal. So there's some links to that as well. And then I also mentioned Laura Vanderkam's book, 168 Hours You Have More Time Than You Think. It's a wonderful book. I've read it twice, and every time I'm able to find more and more tidbits of information that help me get through my day. So let's move on here to prioritizing your work. All right, make a list, keep a planner, and set goals. Your list can either be a checkoff list or a master list. I made a master list while I was pregnant. I realized that I was getting really sidetracked and I couldn't focus, so I made a master list of everything I do. And when I get into a rut, you know, your 2-3 o'clock rut, I go to my master list and I pick off something that's important that needs to be done if for some reason it's not occurring to me without looking at the list. But at the same time, you can do a checkoff list. Hillary Sutton, one of the resources that I mentioned in the resource list, she has something called a to-do list. Instead of a to-do list, it's a to-do list. And a to-do list is listing everything you got done that day. If it was an especially stressful day, having a to-do list is wonderful. You can look back and see this is what I've accomplished, and you'll be ready for the day tomorrow. The next thing is to keep a planner, either paper or electronic. You need to be very organized in this position so that everything gets done and nothing gets left behind. And set goals. And this is something that you should be doing in your everyday life anyway. If you want to feel like you're really progressing, I would say to set no more than 3 to 5 goals at a time and set them quarterly and not annually, because with that smaller amount of time you have more of an opportunity to be successful. Many times we get to January and realize that our New Year's resolutions did not happen because that's an annual goal and we forget about them. And also start small and build your way up. I am a very type A person, so I need to make lists. I need to check things off. I need to be very organized. And that's something that I think has allowed me to be successful. So the next thing we're going to talk about is avoiding distractions. I feel so bad that I talked so much in the beginning that I feel like I'm rushing for you all. So please, if you have any questions, throw them out there for me. So the next thing is to avoid distractions. And these are some of the things that I've been trying lately. I put do not disturb on my phone, or I'll put a sign on my door saying focusing. And when I have that sign up there that says focusing, please do not disturb, it's an hour or two of time that I will close my door and I will do focused work. My staff is very good, unless there's a catastrophe, to leave that time, sacred for me. Once I open the door and take the sign down, then they are free to, drop in as they need to. The Pomodoro technique was something I had read about recently, where you set a set amount of time to focus on work without email or phones, no distractions, and then after that amount of time is up, many times it's 50 minutes, you'll take the next few minutes. So if it's 50 minutes, you take the next 10 of that hour, celebrating your small victories. And those small victories, you can, go get a soda or go listen to a couple of songs to relax and take a few minutes. And then when those few minutes are up, you go back to your 50 minutes of focused work. Debbie and my Circ staff, they answer some reference questions. It just depends on what it is. They'll answer, all your directional things. They even show some people how to use Overdrive and things like that, the downloadable ebooks. It just depends on how busy they are, and if it's something they have an interest in, they will do a little more and they go above and beyond. We don't require that of them. I'm just really, really lucky that I have such amazing people working with me. But yes, for the most part, I do the reference questions. It just depends on what it is, and one, if I'm there. If it's one of those days I'm ordering, they will take down the information so that I can respond, or they'll do their best. Excuse me. Let me see here. Oh, so one of the things at the bottom here where it says be graceful. What I'm referring to here is something we could talk about for 15 minutes, but I'm only going to mention it really quickly. The biggest thing about this is when you get caught up with talking with patrons or with your staff, and that can take up a lot of your time. So some of the things that we've talked about doing in order to pull away, especially from a patron once you've served them and they're satisfied, is to respond by saying, it was nice talking with you, I have to get back to work, or I have to go make a call or have a meeting. And most of the time those patrons know that you're at work and you need to get back to a task, or you need to help the next person, and they're usually pretty nice about that. All right, next, leave work at work. There's always tomorrow. This is so important. I did not do this in the beginning. I took my work home with me. I banked so much comp time. I overworked because I really thought that I had to get it all done. This type of position is always, there's always something that you need to be doing. So leave it at work. You can come back to it tomorrow. I had a really wonderful mentor that told me to pick a spot on my drive home, a landmark or something. And once I got past that landmark, it was time to stop thinking about it. It was time to stop thinking about work and talking about work so that you can separate work and home. All right. So we have a few minutes. We have about 3 minutes or so according to my clock. If you have any questions, here are our resources. And after you look at this for a moment, I will put up my contact slide so that you can write down my email. And I would love to connect with any of you if you have questions afterwards. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And here's my email. But like I said, I may not be able to respond right away, but I'll do my best.